Don't feed the thing under the bridge after midnight. Section 1. The Dare. If you ever hear a voice under the bridge after midnight, don't even think about answering it. I'm saying that now, because I wish someone had told me before I made the mistake of stepping onto that cracked, moss-covered path with nothing but a flashlight and my own stubborn curiosity. It all started as a dare, one of those stupid, reckless teenage games we all play where the point isn't bravery, but proving you're not the first to scream when something bumps in the dark. I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone, and legends are currency. The old stone bridge at the edge of town was one of those stories kids whispered about around campfires or in the shadows of empty school hallways. They said something lived under it, something that would watch you if you weren't careful. Hungry eyes, my friends called them. That's what made it sound so ridiculous at first, hungry eyes. Like some cartoon monster with sharp teeth and glowing orbs glaring from beneath the planks. We were sitting on my friend Kyle's front porch that night, the autumn air sticky with leftover heat from the day, the crickets loud and buzzing, and the streetlight spilling orange light onto our sneakers. The dare was simple. Walk to the bridge, cross it, and come back. Nothing more. Kyle grinned, holding a half-empty soda, his eyes glinting with mischief. "You scared, Jamie?" he teased, leaning back on the porch railing. I laughed. I mean, I had to, right? I wasn't scared. I wasn't a coward. Scared? Me, please. "I'll do it and make it back before you even think about following," I said, puffing out my chest. And in my mind, it was a joke, a performance. Everyone laughed, and even Kyle nodded like I was already a hero. The walk to the bridge wasn't far, maybe 10 minutes from his house, but it felt like a journey into a different world. The streetlights dwindled, swallowed by the overgrown trees that arched over the sidewalk like skeletal fingers. Leaves crunched underfoot, wet from an earlier rain. I thought I could hear whispers in the wind, my name maybe. Carried faintly, though I chalked it up to imagination. Teenagers being teenagers, right? When I reached the bridge, I stopped at the edge and let my flashlight sweep across the stones. The bridge had been there for decades, I'd heard. Old enough to carry secrets older than anyone in town. Moss clung to the stone, slick and dark. Water ran underneath with a steady, gurgling hum. The bridge itself seemed alive somehow, creaking slightly even without wind. I shook my head, laughing nervously. It was just old wood and stone. That's all. But then I noticed the details I hadn't expected. Small scuff marks along the edges of the path, like someone or something had been pacing there for a while. Bits of rotting food scattered across the moss, remnants of something forgotten. Perhaps even ritualistic, though I couldn't say why that idea lodged in my brain so firmly. And the smell of sour iron tang odor made my stomach twist. It didn't smell like garbage. It smelled wrong. "You're hesitating," Kyle's voice rang in my head, though I knew he was still back on his porch. I forced a laugh, shaking off the dread pooling in my chest. "Just making sure the bridge is solid," I muttered to myself. But even as I said it, my flashlight trembled in my hand. Shadows danced where there shouldn't be shadows. Every little ripple of water or rustle of leaves felt amplified, and I felt certain that the wind carried a whisper I couldn't yet place. I crouched to inspect the scraps of food, feeling an irrational compulsion to know what had been left there. Pieces of bread, fruit, even a chicken bone, all half rotted, like some creature had been feasting recently. The rational part of me whispered, "Animals, Jamie. Animals leave scraps." But another deeper part of me, a part I hated admitting, felt watched, felt measured. Every time my beam passed over the underbridge darkness, I felt eyes locking onto me, unblinking, patient. I decided to step closer. One foot onto the bridge, the other still on the cracked sidewalk. The planks groaned beneath my weight, echoing too loudly in the quiet night. That's when I heard it. A soft, raspy whisper, almost drowned out by the water, but unmistakable. My name. Jamie. My flashlight dropped for a split second and my heart kicked against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I laughed nervously, telling myself it was the wind, my imagination, anything but real. And yet, I knew it had been real. There was a timbre to it, a texture that no gust of air or trick of memory could replicate. It was alive. It knew me. I scanned the shadows under the bridge, trying to pierce the darkness. I wanted to see the creature or the eyes or whatever nonsense my friends had spun as a joke. But there was nothing. Only the water, the moss, the planks. The night was still except for that faint whisper, fading in and out with the flow of the river beneath. I backed off, heart hammering, but drawn to it at the same time. There was something there, something curious, something waiting. My curiosity, a dangerous blend of fear and teenage arrogance, pushed me forward. What harm could it do, really? I whispered back just to test it. Who's there? The wind shifted. And I swear, if you ever step onto that bridge, you'll understand. It didn't answer me with words. It answered me with feeling an unmistakable hunger, a presence just beyond sight. I felt it observing me, weighing me, considering. The hairs on the back of my neck rose, prickling in a way that made rational thought impossible. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, flashlight wavering. The whispers came again, closer this time, brushing my ears like a soft exhale. My name, drawn out, rasping, almost bored but with an edge of menace. I wanted to step back, run, turn around, and never come near the bridge again. But I couldn't. My feet were cemented to the spot, glued by a mix of fear and fascination. I know what I should have done. I know I should have turned and left immediately. Gone home, laughed off the nonsense with Kyle in the safety of daylight. But there's a part of me that needed to see it, to know. And that's how it began the first night, the dare, the whisper. That first brush with the thing under the bridge set everything else in motion. So I leaned closer, flashlight angled downward, heart hammering, and I swear I heard it again. My name, louder this time, rasping as though the darkness itself had formed lips. I wish I had listened to them. I really do. Section 2, the feeding. I told myself I wouldn't go back. I really did. The first night had been enough fear, enough trembling heartbeats, enough whispers scraping against my mind like nails on a chalkboard. But there's a funny thing about dares. Once you've been called a coward, once your friends have laughed at you, it eats at you. And curiosity is a different predator. It gnaws at the back of your skull until logic has no voice left. So 2 nights later, I found myself at the edge of that bridge again, backpack in hand, filled with scraps of food, bread, fruit, even some candy I had shoved in there like it would matter. Proof of bravery. Proof that I could face whatever it was and come back alive. The town was asleep, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. Streetlights flickered as I passed under them, and the wind carried the scent of wet leaves and something older, deeper, unnameable. I kept my flashlight steady, though my hand shook enough that the beam wavered over the stone path. Every step toward the bridge felt heavier than the last, as if the air itself resisted my presence. When I reached the bridge, I crouched at the edge, my bag of offerings in front of me. My heart drummed against my ribs like it was trying to escape, but I couldn't stop. I set the scraps down, arranging them as though this were some ceremonial act. I whispered to myself, trying to calm the shaking in my throat. It's just an animal. A trick of the night. Nothing more. And then it appeared. At first I saw nothing beyond the darkness, only the uneven stone supports and the shadows cast by my flashlight. But the air shifted subtle, almost imperceptible, like the difference between a breeze and the exhale of something alive. And then I caught it, hunched low under the bridge. It was small, smaller than I expected, but not fragile. Its limbs were thin, almost twig-like, but it moved with a deliberate, almost predatory grace. The first thing it did was nothing frightening. It reached out, took a piece of bread, and retreated into the shadows. I exhaled, relief and foolish triumph mingling. See? Nothing to it. But the relief didn't last long. The thing started to mimic voices. My friends' first whispers in the tones I recognized from countless sleepovers. Countless jokes. Then my parents, "Jamie, be careful," it said in my mother's voice, warm and scolding at the same time. I froze, flashlight trembling in my grip. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh at the eerie accuracy. The thing's voice didn't just mimic, it understood cadence. The tiny inflections that made each person unmistakable. And then my own. "I see you," it whispered in my voice. Every hesitation, every doubt, every fear I'd ever carried under that bridge seemed to echo through it. I staggered back, tripping over my own feet, and it laughed, or I thought it did. A sound that wasn't human, yet deliberate, intelligent, amused. At first, the feeding seemed predictable. I would toss a scrap, it would take it and retreat. But the pattern didn't hold. It began to grow bold. It whispered things I shouldn't have known, secrets I had buried, thoughts I'd never spoken aloud. The way it said them, it wasn't with malice exactly. It was delight. It was curiosity. I felt exposed in the worst way imaginable, as though the shadows themselves had read my diary and were sharing it with me in the night. And then came the instructions. Soft, insidious, layered beneath mimicry and laughter. Do this, or else. Remember this, or else. I couldn't make sense of them fully, but I knew instinctively. It wasn't just hungry for scraps. It was hungry for attention, for acknowledgement, for submission. And I was hooked. I kept feeding it, afraid to stop, even as a part of my mind screamed to run, to flee, to call the cops, to do anything except stay under that bridge. It studied me, dissected me in ways that felt simultaneously intimate and violating. It watched my reactions, tested my fear threshold, whispered what I wanted to hear, then what I feared most. I thought I was in control until I realized I had no idea where I ended and it began. At one point, it repeated a secret I had never told anyone. Not friends, not family. Something buried so deep that even I had tried to forget it. And it said it with a laugh, a soft rasp that made the hair on my arms spike. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight, heart hammering so hard I was certain it could hear every beat. The creature moved in the shadows, almost always staying just out of reach. Occasionally I caught glimpses of it, a flash of pale skin, glint of something wet in the moonlight, but never long enough to fully see. It was a trickster, a student of observation, feeding on more than just the food I brought. It fed on me, my fear, my pride, my secrets. I tried to speak, to regain some semblance of control. Why do you know these things?" I asked, voice trembling. Silence. Then a whisper, soft and deliberate. "Because you showed me." It wasn't threatening. It was teaching. My pulse throbbed painfully, nausea coiling in my stomach. Teaching what? To fear it? To obey it? Or simply to watch and understand that this wasn't a game anymore? I realized that feeding it had consequences beyond immediate survival. The more I gave, the more it knew, the more entwined I became in its world. Every scrap of food was a breadcrumb leading me further down a path I wasn't sure I wanted to walk. But I couldn't stop. And each time it mimicked my friends, my parents, my own voice. It blurred the line between reality and hallucination. And then, laughter. Not an accidental giggle. Not a scurry of an animal startled by light, but deliberate, intelligent, echoing from the darkness beneath the bridge. A full, resonant laugh that wrapped around me and seemed to seep into my chest. It was amusement, cunning, something terrifyingly sentient. I swallowed hard, choking on the fear lodged in my throat. I stared into the darkness, flashlight shaking, and knew that I had crossed the line from curiosity to complicity. I was no longer a daredevil teenager testing my courage. I was prey, enthralled and exposed, feeding the thing under the bridge. It knows things I've never told anyone. Section 3. The Whispers in the Dark. I thought that once I left the bridge behind, the nightmare would stay there too. I was wrong. Sleep became a weapon against me, each night a battleground where shadows whispered just beyond the periphery of my vision. At first I blamed exhaustion, the adrenaline crash after that first encounter. But soon, the whispers followed me home. I could hear them in the quiet of my bedroom, seeping through the cracks in the floorboards, curling around the hum of my ceiling fan. They repeated phrases I'd heard under the bridge, soft, teasing, warped, as though my own memory had been tampered with. And then, terrifyingly, they began repeating my words back to me, but distorted, twisted. What I had said yesterday, hours ago, even thoughts I hadn't voiced, became distorted echoes in my own home. Friends started noticing changes in me. I was jumpy, distracted, sometimes muttering under my breath in ways that didn't make sense. I smiled at things I shouldn't, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. At first I laughed along, blaming stress or my own nerves. But then, little things started to happen. My backpack would shift when I wasn't looking. Notes I hadn't written appeared on my desk. My phone would ring with calls from numbers I didn't know. And when I picked up, nothing but static. Every time I tried to confide in someone, the words felt wrong on my tongue, as though the entity had already read and rewritten them. Desperate, for proof that I wasn't losing my mind entirely, I set up a voice recorder in my room. At first I thought I'd catch nothing more than background noise, maybe my own sleep talking. But when I played it back the next morning, I felt my stomach turn in ways words can't quite capture. The recorder didn't just have my words, it had things I had never said. Sentences, full conversations that never occurred, questions that felt like claws probing the back of my mind. Why are you afraid? Do you like it when I watch? I dropped the device, my hands trembling, the tape still whirring with a distorted echo of my own voice pleading back at me. It didn't matter where I went. Whispering followed me into the kitchen, the bathroom, even outside while I tried to escape the confines of my house. In the middle of the day, the voices were faint, but enough to unsettle me. A casual walk down, the street became a gauntlet. The wind seemed to carry soft imitations of my name, my laugh, my inner monologue. It was always present, always observing, always responding, not directly. Never directly, but with enough precision to make me doubt the very air around me. I started to record myself more obsessively, dictating my thoughts into my phone, narrating my day, attempting to create a timeline of interactions. But the entity was ahead of me. Sometimes when I played back the recordings, the sentences had shifted. Phrases I thought I had spoken perfectly were altered, rearranged, asking questions that made me sweat in the middle of the night. Do you like what you've unleashed? Are you ready to join? I stopped leaving the device on while I slept, but the dread followed me regardless. It didn't need the recorder, it knew what I would say, it knew my routines, my fears, my patterns. One night I finally heard it clearly. A whisper that wasn't just mimicry, wasn't just echoes, wasn't just distortion. A voice as close and deliberate as my own heartbeat. Stop, or you join the pile. I froze. My chest constricted, my brain short-circuiting between disbelief and raw terror. The pile? The words lodged themselves in my skull like splinters, echoing over every memory I had of the bridge, the feeding, the laughter. I didn't move for an hour after I heard it say my name. I couldn't. Every muscle refused to obey. I imagined the thing under the bridge, hunched and waiting, counting the moments until I faltered. Sleep became impossible. I slept with lights on, the voice recorder under my pillow, my phone beside me, died. But even then the whispers found me. The soft rasping, the mocking mimicry, the questions that only I would ask myself. Why did you come back? Do you want to see it again? Did you think you could leave? Every phrase crawled under my skin until I started hearing it in every quiet room I entered. Even my reflections, those mundane, ordinary surfaces, seemed to carry faint echoes. When I passed the mirror in the hallway, I thought I saw a shadow shift behind me, mimicking my movement but with a delay just long enough to make my mind twitch. I began avoiding my friends, pretending I was sick, trying to rationalize it all away. But the voice recorder told me otherwise. It documented moments I didn't even remember, late-night wanderings through the house, whispered conversations with shadows, muttering under my breath to myself, or so I thought. The entity had turned my own voice against me, and now my own home was a cage. By the end of that week, paranoia had a grip on me so tight that my reflection, my own shadow, even my own breathing felt like potential threats. I no longer trusted my words. I no longer trusted the air around me. The entity was everywhere and nowhere, and then it stepped forward from the abstract to the personal with a warning so direct I could feel it in my throat. Stop, or you join the pile. I didn't sleep. I didn't blink. I sat in the dark. Lights off, recorder off, phone on silent, not daring to move for fear that movement alone would betray me. The night stretched, oppressive and unending. The silence between the whispers thicker than any sound I had ever known. I knew even then that this wasn't just about fear anymore. It was about survival. The bridge had extended itself into my home, my life, my mind, and if I didn't find a way to stop it, I wouldn't just be a victim. I'd become part of its collection. Section 4. The rules no one reads. I never meant to go back to the bridge. I swore after that first week of whispers, after the recorder told me things I hadn't even said aloud, that I'd leave it alone. But curiosity is a cruel mistress, and fear is a more persuasive teacher. I needed answers, or maybe just a sense of control. That's how I found myself hiking through the woods near the bridge just before sunset. eyes scanning the undergrowth, heart hammering